The moment my brother leaned toward me, I knew he wanted the words to land quietly and cut deep. "This is where it ends," James said under his breath. "By the time you walk out, everyone in Austin will know who you really are." I didn't turn to look at him. I kept my eyes forward, hands folded on the table, breathing slow enough that no one could see the damage spreading in my chest. Behind him, my parents sat close together. My father's jaw was tight, controlled, the same expression he used in board meetings when a deal went his way. My mother avoided my eyes completely. That hurt more than his stare ever could. The courtroom buzzed with low whispers. I caught fragments as people settled into their seats. Family case, real estate money, involuntary filing. James straightened, confident now. $2.3 million, he said, just loud enough for me to hear. "You should have paid it back when you had the chance." I finally looked at him. There was never a loan. His smile barely moved. "You can explain that to the judge." Before I could respond, my lawyer, Rebecca Shaw, leaned in. "Don't give him anything," she said softly. "Not yet." The bailiff called the room to order. Conversations died instantly. Phones disappeared. Pens hovered, waiting. As the judge took his seat, I felt the weight of every assumption already made about me. To anyone watching, I was the sister who failed, the daughter who embarrassed her family, the businesswoman who flew too close to the sun. Before the hearing continued, let me be clear about one thing. The entire content of the video is a fictional work created by the writing team of the Revenge Pulse channel, intended to reflect common conflicts in families and society, helping viewers recognize their emotions and choose a more positive way of living. James glanced at me one last time, certain he had already won. If you're listening right now, wherever you are, stay with me. What happens next is the part they never expected, and it changes everything. Long before the courtroom, my place in the Whitfield family had already been decided. At dinner, James always sat beside my father, close enough to finish his sentences. "Stability matters," my father would say, cutting his food with precision. "People trust what feels familiar." James would nod. "That's how you protect the name." When it was my turn to speak, the air always changed. I remember one night when I laid out my plan for a mixed-use development near the River District. I had numbers, timelines, partners willing to listen. My mother smiled politely. "It sounds ambitious." "Caroline," she said, "but ambition can look reckless." My father didn't look at the papers. "Our family doesn't chase trends," he said. "We manage risk. We don't invite it." James laughed softly. "You're trying to prove something that doesn't need proving." I closed my folder without answering. Silence was safer than pushing back. Pushing back only confirmed their fears. After dinner, as the others drifted into comfortable conversations, my grandmother Evelyn touched my arm. Her voice was low, meant only for me. "They don't hear you because they don't need you," she said. "That doesn't make you wrong." Those words stayed with me longer than any lecture my father ever gave. By the time I decided to leave, no one tried to stop me. My mother hugged me too carefully. My father said, "Do what you think you must." James smiled and said nothing. That was the moment I understood. I wasn't walking away from my family. I was stepping out of a role they had never planned to give me. I didn't announce my departure. I packed my office into 2 boxes and left them on my desk, like proof I had once belonged there. My father called me the following week. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he said. "Come back before you embarrass yourself." "I'm not coming back," I replied. There was a pause. "Then don't use the Whitfield name," he said. "Earn whatever happens next. That part, at least." I agreed with. I registered my company under a name that carried no legacy and no protection. When I met with potential investors, I didn't mention my family unless they asked. Most didn't. A few did. And when they did, the room went quiet. "So you're really on your own?" One of them said, "Yes. I answered. That's the point. Progress came slowly. One signed letter of intent, one cautious partner, long meetings where every assumption was challenged. When a deal fell apart, no one stepped in to soften the landing. James sent a text once. Dad says you're burning bridges. I didn't respond. The first project that moved forward wasn't flashy. It was manageable, profitable enough to survive. When I signed the final document, my hands shook not from fear, but from relief. For the first time, everything I built stood on one thing alone: me. The email arrived just after dawn. I recognized the subject line before I opened it. Involuntary bankruptcy petition filed. My name followed, formal and unforgiving. I read it once, then again, slower the second time, as if the words might rearrange themselves out of shame. James claimed he had extended a personal bridge loan of $2.3 million to stabilize my company. He claimed I had misused it. He claimed insolvency. I called Rebecca Shaw immediately. She didn't interrupt while I spoke. When I finished, she said, "Forward everything, then come in." Her office was quiet in the way serious places are quiet. She scanned the filing, her expression tightening with each page. "There's no transfer record," she said. "No interest terms. No collateral language. This isn't a loan. It's a story." He filed it anyway. I said, "Yes," she replied, "because the filing itself is the weapon." She tapped one paragraph. "The timing is interesting. According to this, the money was sent during your strongest cash position. That makes no sense unless the goal was leverage, not repayment." I felt the room narrow around me. They're trying to take control. Rebecca met my eyes. They're trying to force you to settle, to surrender, or to collapse publicly. Those are the usual outcomes. And if I don't, then we treat this like what it is. She said, "An attack." I nodded, the weight settling in. They want to turn me into proof that leaving the family was a mistake. Rebecca closed the file. Then we make sure the court sees the truth before the story spreads any further. What unsettled me wasn't the accusation. It was the precision. James's filing didn't read like guesswork. It cited internal projections, permit timelines, contingency language I had only shared with my senior team. Rebecca noticed it too. "This level of detail doesn't come from the outside," she said. "Someone is feeding them." I started listening differently. During a planning meeting, Tyler Benson leaned back in his chair and said, "If cash tightens, we should prioritize the West parcel first." He said it casually, like an observation. That parcel wasn't public knowledge yet. "Why that one?" I asked. He shrugged. "Just a hunch." Afterward, I pulled him aside. "Keep your focus on operations." I said, "I'll handle strategy." "Of course," he replied. "Just trying to help." Later that week, Rebecca called. "They referenced your reserve thresholds," she said. Exact phrasing. I felt my jaw set. No one outside the room should know that. "Then someone inside the room does," she said. "We need proof, not suspicion." At the next closed call, I introduced a detail that didn't exist. "We're considering off-site document storage in New Mexico." I said, evenly, purely hypothetical. Tyler nodded, taking notes. 2 days later, James's attorney filed an emergency motion warning the court about potential transfers to New Mexico. Rebecca didn't raise her voice when she called me. They acted too fast. I closed my eyes. It wasn't a coincidence. "No," she said. "It was a mistake." I looked at my calendar, at the hearing date inching closer. "Then we stop guessing," I said, "and we start proving." Once the motion was filed, everything accelerated. Rebecca and I sat across from each other, documents spread between us. "They didn't just reference New Mexico," she said. "They mirrored your language." I nodded, word for word. "That means access," she said. "And timing." We pulled the call records, the distribution list, the file access logs. Tyler's name appeared too often, too precisely. Late nights, Short windows, always followed by movement on their side. I called Tyler into my office. I kept my voice steady. "The legal pressure is escalating," I said. "I need to know you're fully aligned." He smiled, practiced and calm. "I am. I've always been." "Then you won't mind this," I said, sliding a folder across the desk. "From now on, sensitive documents go through legal only." His smile tightened. "Of course." After he left, Rebecca exhaled. "That reaction matters." She said, "People who aren't exposed don't flinch." By the end of the week, we had our chain. Access timestamps. Language overlap. A clear path from my conference room to James's filings. "They won't know we have this," Rebecca said. "Not yet." "They think they're ahead," I replied. She closed her laptop. "That's when people make their worst decisions." I thought of James's certainty in the courtroom, the way he spoke as if the outcome was already sealed. I leaned back in my chair. "Then we let them keep believing that," I said. Rebecca nodded once. "And we wait for the right moment." James's attorney spoke first, confident and unhurried. He described my company as unstable, overextended, a risk to creditors. He repeated the phrase $2.3 million as if saying it often enough would make it real. When he finished, James leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. He didn't look at me. He didn't need to. He believed the room was already his. Judge Mason adjusted the papers in front of him. He didn't speak right away. The silence stretched longer than anyone expected. Then he looked up. "Ms. Whitfield," he said, his voice even. "Are you currently listed as a preferred developer in the city's preliminary River District redevelopment framework?" I stood. "Yes, Your Honor." James turned toward me sharply. Judge Mason continued. "That framework reflects a projected investment of $68 million over 7 years, pending final council approval. Is that correct?" "Yes," I said. "Phase 1 commitments are already in place." James's attorney stood. "Your Honor, that project is not finalized." Judge Mason raised a hand. "I'm aware. I'm also aware it contradicts the claim that this company lacks viable operations." He turned to Rebecca. "Counsel." Rebecca stood calmly. "There is no loan, Your Honor. No transfer. No enforceable agreement. What exists is a pattern." She placed a document on the stand. Unauthorized access to internal files, followed by filings that mirror confidential language. James shook his head. "That's not." Rebecca didn't look at him. "This detail," she said, "was introduced internally and appeared in their motion within 48 hours. Judge Mason studied the page. His expression hardened. "Mr. Whitfield," he said, addressing James directly. "How did your counsel obtain this information?" James opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The room felt different now. He knew it. I knew it. Judge Mason leaned back. "This court does not reward strategy built on manipulation." For the first time, James looked at me without certainty. Rebecca didn't rush the next part. She let the silence work before she spoke again. "This petition didn't begin with my client," she said. "It began with losses elsewhere." She introduced a series of filings, clean and unemotional. My father stiffened as numbers appeared on the screen. A commercial retail project outside San Antonio, refinancing delays, debt that hadn't been disclosed publicly. James's attorney shifted. "Those matters are unrelated. They're connected by timing," Rebecca replied. "The losses surfaced just weeks before this petition was filed." Judge Mason looked toward my father. "Mr. Whitfield, were these liabilities known when your son initiated this action?" My father's voice was controlled. "They were being managed by shifting pressure," Rebecca said, "onto the only person in the family operating independently." James stood abruptly. "That's not why I did this." Rebecca met his eyes for the first time. "Then explain the urgency." He hesitated. The room waited. Judge Mason closed the file. "This court finds the petition was filed in bad faith," he said. "It is dismissed with prejudice." My mother inhaled sharply. The judge continued, "The record will be referred to appropriate federal authorities and state licensing boards for further review." James sat down slowly. My father didn't look at me. The decision settled into the room, heavy and final. What they had built to protect themselves had collapsed instead, and they had nowhere left to redirect the blame. Outside the courthouse, voices followed me, calling my name, asking for statements. I didn't slow down. Rebecca touched my arm once. "It's done," she said. "I know," I replied, and for the first time, I felt it. That evening, my mother called. Her voice was careful, measured. "We need to talk," she said. "This has gone far enough. It went far enough when you let it happen." I said. There was a pause. "Is there anything you can do?" she asked, "to make this go away?" "No," I answered, not sharply, not gently, just clearly. She didn't argue. She didn't apologize. The line went quiet, and then it ended. Weeks later, I met with a small legal nonprofit and signed the papers quietly. The fund would carry my grandmother Evelyn's name. No announcements, no speeches, just access to help for people caught in battles they never chose. Rebecca reviewed the documents and smiled. "This matters," she said. "So does knowing when to stop fighting." I replied, "If this story resonated with you, if it felt familiar in ways you didn't expect, stay connected. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes recognition is the first step toward choosing something better." I closed my laptop, turned off the light, and walked out knowing I wasn't carrying anyone else anymore.